Museo Iloilo was built in 1971 to pay tribute to the Ilonggo heroes and ancestors. It is the home of Iloilo and Panay's cultural and historical artifacts. The whole structure was designed by Ilonggo architect Mr. Sergio Peña Sales. Considered to be the first government-sponsored museum outside Metro Manila, it is located along Bonifacio Drive, Iloilo City. To trace back its beginning, in 1969, Gregorio Araneda II, Commissioner of the Bureau of Travel and Tourist Industry, broached the idea of building a local museum in his home province where he provided a budget of 100,000 pesos. The National Museum prepared a design for the project. However, when it was put to a bidding, the bids were several times above the budget. Araneda then tapped Peña Sales, then in his 30s, and commissioned him to come up with a design in a month. Peña Sales worked long into the night to finish his design, and 3 nights before the deadline he caught a flu. But that didn't stop him from meeting Araneda the next morning to show him the design, which is now the 51-years-old Museo Iloilo. During the construction of the project, Peña Sales encountered a new challenge along the way, which is how to execute his facade that shows the centuries-old churches in the province because it was something that he had no prior experience with. He decided to experiment by drawing the silhouettes of the churches on plywoods and had them etched, layer over layer to serve as form for concrete pouring. The drawings of the churches were then casted into the wall, not carved out of the concrete. The main display of the Museo Iloilo are the paleontological and archaeological finds in Iloilo and various artifacts relating to Iloilo's history and culture but present-day artworks can also be seen. It houses an impressive collection of Iloilo's cultural heritage which includes Stone Age native pottery, fossils, jewelry, burial sites, trade pottery from China's Annam and Siam era, mementos and or relics of a British sunken ship, and Spanish sculpture. Modern artworks made by Ilonggo artists and craftsmen of today are also exhibited and changed in the museum monthly. Now that you know about the history of Museo Iloilo, let us hear from the architect himself who has granted us an interview in his humble abode.
Araneta set another budget for the interiors, which was even more expensive than building. I think it cost 160,000, including the landscape. While this promise of collections came, and we have the mound, what I did there was put a retaining wall to hold the mound, and then the thing that you see there, which is like a seat, is actually the extremities of the sukalo. It's like a bench. And then I don't believe in fences. Some people were saying the people rob the museum because you have no fence. Kali, this is a public building. When you put the fence, who are you driving out? The building should never have if it's private, okay lang.
Was the inspiration behind the concept and the form of the building?
The form? Well, first, it's a linto. Structure of the poor. Linto But it is romanticized. Also, it's, this is slanted, And then the other one is opposite, trapezoid. It just felt that culture is emerging. But Iloilo's culture is emerging because of the museum. If you notice the facade, it's blank now. But you have those churches. That's another problem, no? Can you guess how that was built? It was in the formwork. You pour concrete with using plywood form. It's to start with, I drew the churches in full size. Draw on the Manila paper by scaling it from my drawing, from my own drawing. There are 4 carpenters assigned here. Cut the plywood, different thickness, 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, layered. And then all the edges of the plywood were canted. After the forms were finished, it was lacquered and greased. Now, that section of the Museo, those three churches are, that is a special pour. We used smaller aggregates from the rest. In the first place, the idea is, we call that the footprints of culture. When it was placed there, you know, can you imagine the 4 carpenters who work on that? They were surprised by themselves because it was sculptural, you know, when they finished the work, my golly, it's sculptural, oh. They were churches. They were just following the lines, no? It was placed there. I told the foreman, we should get the forms 30 days, huh? The concrete cures 28 days. Normally, it was placed there. You know that wall is poured, eh? There's not hollow block, huh? The end walls, the other wall, they are concrete pour. And the appointed day, we were all there. The structural engineer, the foreman, contractor, the corporal, and myself. And I was not sure, you know, when they started taking the form off, started from the bottom, no? Track, going up. No chipping, no. It's untouched. You know, that's unretouched. Even the lines that you see there, including the name Museo Iloilo, that's all poured concrete, with the concrete, including the one at the entrance, with the nahaw. When the commissioner visited here, Rudy asked me to talk to the commissioner. But the commissioner, during our talk, asked me, he said, can you design a museum with an area of 500 square meters for a budget of at most 100,000? I said, well, I try, no? At the time, I was the only one in my office. I had no staff. So I I had 1 month to finish the design and working drawing. 3 days before the deadline, I was down with the flu. I could not make the trip to Manila. We were going to meet the commissioner. It was postponed, no? He said, it looks okay, no? Have it bidded with the same people. So it was bidded again. But the commissioner left word that he said, I have another 25,000 that I can add, he said. In other words, the budget was 125,000. The last bid was open. It was the Timoteo Husayan. The cost was 124,500. It was 500 less. We went right away to Manila. It was the deputy commissioner. His name was Resurrection. He said, well, the commissioner left word that budget, we built it. So go ahead. So that was the first hurdle we had. So we started building. The name, I just coined the name Museo Iloilo, no? And there was also criticism on that. Some Hispanic academicians were saying, it's not right. It should be Museo de Iloilo, real Spanish. I wrote again an article in behalf of Rudy. The national language for museum is Museo. Iloilo is a place. So, you say Museo Iloilo without the conjunction. And then I was citing other museums abroad. No? I cited some examples. Museums having only two words, some connected, some without conjunction. The impact of the museum. Can you imagine the children, huh? How old are those children now? Basically, they were exposed to their culture by the Museo. With the Museo, no? Can you imagine? It is already 50 years old. 50 years that it has exposed people to our own culture. And then, aside from that, it was the number one tourist destination before the malls and all this Mecca World and all that. When you travel, your starting point is the museum. So from the design point of view, no? When during the openings, no, we don't come in the museum. We go there sa podium, no. When you go up the podium, you feel a little elevated. It has a sense of place. Sometime during the Spanish-Philippine Friendship Week. It's the first time that the celebration was held outside Manila. So the curator at the time, Sapito Ledesma, he told me, he said, "Church, why don't we have something loud so people will notice us?" So we colored the museum. Those are Philippine and Spanish colors. All the ambassadors very happy.
How do you feel now about, your building has turned into a heritage structure?
Well, I think it deserves to be a heritage structure. You know why? I said there were no malls. The museum was there. There were school buses all over Panay that would have field trips to the Museo. One time, no, Prime Minister of Great Britain, si Howe, visited the museum incognito. Wala security. The governor did not even know it. They called me, said the curator, the Prime Minister is here. The Prime Minister of what? Said the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Nobody is entertaining him here, no? So I ran to the museum from here. But I met the wife. There were 3 buses waiting their turns. There were already children inside the museum, no? When I came in, I was introduced to, she was there, no? She was looking at the kids. She was enjoying herself. I said, "Oh, good morning." She said, "Gali, this museum is really used." You know, the children were even under her skirts, oh. They're under there making, writing there. There were buses waiting pa, ha? They're scheduled there. Okay. Prime Minister comes out of the toilet in shorts. He was in shorts.
Why?
He changed in the museum, in the toilet there. So I saw the governor, si Governor Ada, of the provincial capital running, because he learned the Prime Minister. I was ahead of him. So Prime Minister came in dito because they were going to vacation in Gibagas. After 1 hour, I think the allotment was 1 hour, the next bus or load comes in. It was like that. People were coming in.
We then asked architect Panaso Les about what advice can he give to the young architects of today. And he said, everything is a process. There is no beginning, there is no end. Enjoy it.